Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to begin our afternoon keynote speaker session. Hello and welcome to What Driving Provided to Me, an autistic perspective on driving, presented by Andrew Arboe. Our conference presenting sponsors are Eagle Leasing and ABA Centers of America. We ask that those of you joining us virtually, please keep your microphone muted by clicking the mic symbol in the lower left of your screen. If you have any questions, please use the chat function and we will try to answer these after the presentation. There will be a short quiz to complete to qualify for CEU credits if you wish to submit for these. For those of you joining us live today, please remember that all voices from the audience will be picked up on the microphone. We ask that you raise your hands with questions to ensure good sound quality for all involved. Now, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Andrew Arboe. And thank you.
Oh, okay. There goes much better. I thought it was going to be a bio, but I guess I'll adapt and go from there.
Oh.
Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew, and almost 5 years talking about this topic. Actually 4, but it's still kind of crazy on its own. I think the next slide should be a more introduction, I think. Oh, there goes. There goes. Title there. So skip. Much better. It's kind of finicky, but this is the more the bio. Andrew Arboe, I have like about 5 years of professional autism work. I'm also a self-advocate. I've been to several public and private schools and a few nonprofits. And I want to give a special thanks to my coworker here, who's here on the nearby table, and then the Anderson Center for also being here. Can't wait for the next Echo Zoom pretty soon. So, all right, let's get to the main topic. I'm going to go over the pre-license. I'm going to go really quick since it's about an hour, just like Jennifer, who did an amazing presentation this morning. I have 2 main slides for my own good, but I'm probably just going to go quick on the ones that I'm pretty sure. I also go over pre-license and accuracy, and then finally, like giving overall, which is all you came here. And before we start, just going to go over that this represents just my own experience. This does not affect everyone else, because driving and transportation in general can be freaky for a lot of people, so I don't want to speak for the whole crowd. And I'm pretty humble in general, so let's get started and get used to the mic too. Oh, there it goes. It goes pretty slow. It all started back in 2017, 2018. The fact it's like 5, 6 years is very weird to me right now. And the fact I'm standing in this room right now. But I used to use non-driving auctions, and some of these include public transport. And this, in context, this is in the state of Connecticut where I'm at, where I'm like central Connecticut. Like at this time I was going to a community college for an associate's degree. And during that time I used a lot of busing to get to everywhere. And central Connecticut, for those, I don't know anyone here is too familiar, aside from my coworker here, is that central Connecticut's pretty good for buses. And then I also used Uber for the select days because colleges like their evening times and they hate convenience for everyone else, but just have to make it work. And then rides from my dad or friend who happens to go the same thing. And then finally trains, mostly for Yale. And then why transportation matters. And some of this, it maybe comes like a no duh, but at the same time, I feel like it's good to go over this as well. Like having transportation just increases the fee areas of like opportunities, education, like what college you want to go to. If it's like long distance, let's say you want to go from Connecticut to a college, like there's like several colleges vendors here and at this conference. So you want to drive over there. I think it's like one that's like 10, 20 minutes away from Springfield. So that might be something people want to, but in this same in Connecticut, it gets kind of hard. Granted, a lot of colleges now due to the pandemic have online classes, but there's some you want to get them authentic college experience. And then employment, because, well, a lot of people don't think about it. I actually wrote about this in an article I did for Autism Spectrum News, is employment and transportation are kind of like one of the sides of the same coin. Like you need transportation to actually get to a rec setting. Like I would not be able to do this if I didn't have a license. Either that or take a train that hopefully gets me to where I am. So both are really important. And then social interactions, like, of course, like how you're going to get to places if you don't have transportation. So main areas that matter, so pretty much, it just increases just overall quality of life, independence. I know there's other terms as well, but on the most part, it just increases just overall quality of life. And then halfway in my community college, again, this is still 2017, I realized there was a problem to where it goes, oh yeah, instead degree context is disability specialist. So I still talk to a few people and they don't know what the degree is. Kind of useful as well, unfortunate, because it's something that fits me and I wanted to get into the disability, kind of like human services field. So I went to there at the exact right time. Wait for that one. And I realized that reality during that time was public transport, as well, has all its good perks, is that it's limited in what I needed to do personally. Like, you know, like Central Connecticut is really good, but you have eastern parts of Connecticut that are absolutely horrid and not having a lot of options. And then other parts in the state, other parts of the states has like, it's very depends, really depends where you're at. And also bus routes themselves. I think till this day, the bus in my town still has no weekend ones, and I have no idea. Said bus goes in West Hartford, I have no idea on weekends. Not that I care nowadays, since I don't really need it, but still kind of silly thinking about this still. And then Uber also added overtime with, and also budget, because I can only imagine Uber prices during the pandemic. I used to pay like, I think it was like $10, $11 for a trip back to my place. So I hate to figure out the price now. And then pretty much my need for a ride over time, it just kind of added, like it took away from what stuff my dad wanted to do. And sometimes when I look at it, it's like, what do I do now? So I kind of had that feeling of being isolated away from other people because I'm always active. My coworker can definitely agree with me. I always want to be somewhere. And for example, I'm actually going to be in two autism walks, one in Mass this Saturday and then a Sunday one in Rhode Island. So I am not a still type of person. I'm actually, okay, now I'm moving on. That's much better. And then just had a fear of just not making full use of this disability specialist degree that I've had. While it's not a bachelor's, that's like, again, it opened the doors to more employment for me. And if I were to do a bachelor's, which I am at that time, like I wasn't sure how much I can get out of that. So it became quite urgent. So pretty much my main reason, and I talk about this motivation a lot. If any of you, I don't know if any of you looked in my older materials, I used to have a couple blogs on motivation. And it's everything for myself, employment, and other people go like socialization, other for school, then other just for the sake of freedom. So it's like a lot of different reasons most people choose transportation. And then main challenges for me, and again, I'll go really quick, is driver training, and then Connecticut. Actually, I'm not in Connecticut. I could actually have a lot of fun bashing Connecticut on and off in a positive way, not in a really toxic way. Anyway, driver training. First one was anxiety from both myself and my dad. God bless my dad. He did allow me to take the first steps, some hard steps, but still, like it was there. And now he's like a team player. He still texts me to be there, and he was quite surprised with some of the trips I do, but that will be later on in the presentation. But pretty much he was super anxious because of my autism, and I actually don't blame him a lot because with all the different characteristics, and hopefully I don't anger the whole room because autism has all of those complexities and the language preferences as well, but it has not only the, like the character traits, also have challenges as well. That's varies to each person, like executive functioning, as mentioned in the beginning keynote, where it's just a lot of organization skills and also just making split-second decision-making skills, like how to figure out, let's say 91 after here. I can only imagine it's probably gonna be, I'm gonna guess traffic-wise like messy after this conference. So it's like how to figure out, let's say someone really wants to do some crazy turns. That sort of decision making, and also sensory processing, because driving takes in a lot of senses, like the vehicles ahead of you, the lights, especially nighttime. To this day, I still can't stand high beam lights. I absolutely hate them. So like those little things that do count, that add to challenges that may not be for other people, but it just comes up quite consistently in talking to other autistic drivers I know from the last couple of years. And then what came up because of my own dad's anxiety was I felt anxious, I was self-aware, and it kind of added a bit over time. And then another one, and I'm gonna have some fun with some Connecticut bashing. I mean, non-toxic bashing is just a lack of resources in the state of Connecticut. I think this one's Connecticut centered, and there it goes. Oh, there it goes, much better. I think it needs coffee. Like it desperately needed coffee. So during the same years, there was a fewer studies. There was a bit more studies now. Like there was a caretaker study of how they can be able to help individuals with this sort of topic. So it's getting a bit better. And I'm trying not to be biased because I'm also want to be active in the scene. But way back, it wasn't as much. And then the most notable study during that time was like 1 in 3 teams got their license without a intellectual disability. And then for other studies, if you want to get more access to that, it tends to get stuck in paywalls. And I did a research paper for my psychology class for currently in my bachelor's, and the amount of studies I had to go and find a couple really want to do with paywalls, like I was not a fan of that. So I had to go back ways to actually get a couple that worked for my paper. So yeah, that, and then another one is just written content, and it's nothing to speak ill of parents and organizations. By all means, like they're the ones that write up everything. There wasn't a lot of self-advocate like accountants or perspectives, at least in the time I see it. It could very likely change, or I just didn't know about it during that time. Like I wasn't the current me at that time. Let's see if this hopefully behaves. Okay, much better. Okay, now the Connecticut side, I'd be really quick here. A lot of the special education, my coworker might attest to this as well. A lot of conferences and workshops more focus on public transportation, which again, I want to say is not a bad thing. Like the buses work for everyone, that's worked for ones that this makes the most sense for you, use it. Like you do you at the end of the day. At the same time, because there wasn't as much there, like there wasn't like how are people supposed to know how driving looks like for anyone. So I was like, I would attend all of these things because you know me, I'm networking, and you probably see me pacing around like I had like 10 coffees today at the vendor spots up in this floor and the bottom floor. So I just never saw anything that stood out on this topic. And even right now, and it's gotten a bit weirder because I've involved in some other projects. I'm going to go into that later on. There was very few driver rehab specialists or like OTs, but they focus more on like disabilities and more driving side. There was fewer in the state of Connecticut, but Massachusetts is a bit better. It was a couple more schools and other hospital programs that stood out. So good for all of you here in the state of Mass. But Connecticut is a good state. I will add that so make it less toxic. All right, and then both me and my dad agreed in attending driving school, and I'm just gonna go quick. I went to a Connecticut school called the Next Street, locally near my town, like central Connecticut. I almost disclosed my autism over there, but I chose not to. I want to be in regular classroom, and probably just me making life harder for myself when it needs to, but it's been a trait in my accuracy. Oh yeah, and I also said that too. So what worked for them? What worked, and this is before they had a program. Unfortunately, it was dissolved at the beginning of this year, which is a real yikes for Connecticut. But anyway, like a lot of the instructors there were patient with me, and a lot of the cars had like the second passenger break where if you know the sections, and you could probably pick it up every now and then, like they intentionally have used a second break, be able to kind of go over a lesson before you go do the next thing. Like they're pretty much, and they had like a packet that had all this organized information. Like they don't put you on the highway. Like they won't put you at 91 over here. I can only imagine how crazy it is right after this. So like there's a sense of routine, and it was discussed in probably the earlier sessions of how routine can be a world of difference for a lot of people. May not everyone, but a good amount of people. So they had a good routine, and handout there was good for feedback. It was mostly me from my dad, but mostly for me of just kind of what I should do next time. And with that aftermath, I just kind of started to develop some sort of self-confidence. This was like 2018. And I saw I was able to pull off doing a license, and I at least needed some more time before I need to get it, because in Connecticut, and I don't agree with it. I think the rule is really stupid, but for the permit, you have 2 years to get it unless you want to go and retake the whole permit test again. I don't think it exists in Mass, but someone should correct me on that. I know there's some state officials here, but it's a silly thing in Connecticut. Don't really agree with it. And then the next challenge is finding time and places in my schedule. Like even before the current me right now, I've always been a busy type. I worked part-time in 2 places and attended community college. So I had no choice. I had no choice to do weekend drives to be able to get lessons. And I can't just talk to my dad who does landscaping right after like a good like 9 to 5 day and be like, let's go driving afterwards. No one in the right mind would do that. And I can't blame him at all. So I had to kind of figure out how I'm going to make this work. And that's when I discovered I need to have reasons for places. Like if I don't have reasons, what am I doing? and I'm gonna have fun. And this is my older car, Toyota Matrix. I still miss it. I drive a Subaru now, and I use stuff that I'm interested in, video games. I use video game stores. There's one that's thankfully nearby. I use a lot of back quotes, and I just make it work. And because I want to go attend some social outings or I want to buy a video game, it's a good excuse. And then obviously work stuff like special education and autism events, absolutely. Absolutely. I think I drove to a resource fair one time during the Northeastern, a main version, mind you. It was right before the license, the law test happened. Even through probably a little extreme example, and I don't encourage anyone to do that. It worked for me. Maybe not so much my dad, and he got a little annoyed, and same with me in response, but made it work regardless. So those are perfectly good reasons, because you want to be able to do this for your lifetime. So why wouldn't you? And then active center social centers, I don't know if any of you are in Connecticut, but maybe there's a social center here in Springfield. If there's a cool little social scene, and as long as parking doesn't drive you insane, that's a good excuse. And then I also worked an occasional weekend job at a Connecticut nonprofit called Autism Families Connecticut. It was good weekends. I used 30 minutes of back quotes. And again, it worked and was a huge confidence booster. I'm gonna go quick. And as a result, I became a lot more adventurous. I mentioned I did drove in Northeastern years ago. Haven't driven any since, so I became a lot smarter over time. And again, thanks to that weekend job I've had way back, it kind of finalized that confidence I've had. And I started to do a bit longer trips, including some Highway 95 in Connecticut drives. One was by accident, I wasn't supposed to, but my dad decided just go with it. And it worked, and we had to do some lane changes and actually drove it back. I think it was a couple months ago. So kind of things that kind of go back to full circle, even if it's not officially 5 years. I want to say 5 years so bad, but it's not. And then I scheduled my world test in October 2018 and go to this and you've seen nothing but. And beforehand, I did a mock-up test. I always encourage people to do mock-up tests if possible before your world test, because you need to be able to, if you do it ahead of time, you'd be a lot more familiar with the environments we're going into. And also parking too, because they will always try to get you parking both forward and then behind, back and in. I still can't back in to save myself. And one of the hints for any new drivers or people that are interested in drive, you don't have to always back in. You could always just go forward and then reverse out. No one will give you a ticket for that. Things will be a lot more flexible once you get your license. And basically, since you be the master of your own car, life will get a lot better from there. But anyway, on the day of, this was October 30th, 2018, almost 5 years, but not. I did everything I needed to do, and now just waiting at the DMV space in Central Connecticut. And I was trying to calm any nerves. And I think of this ridiculous memory, I should probably go quick because of the time. I basically used a video game's final boss, the one that took me 9 months, and I both disliked and I also loved it for being so out of the blue and just causing all of these emotions that kind of go through me. And then just turned out that in order to become, I actually just have to take it, I guess, day by day and be able to actually beat it. So it took 9 months again to beat it. And I just used those feelings from that video game to the day of taking the test, not thinking it was an actual video game, mind you, but I took the feelings of that and just realized that, okay, I need to become, and saw my inspector, the DMV guy, show up, and I just did everything, and just all of it just disappeared, and I was able to just attain the license, first license, and then again, I had that sense of relief, yes, I did it. And I'm able to make full use of that degree because at that same year, I graduated Manchester Community College in Connecticut. So it was kind of urgent. I wanted to get it right before I right before I graduate, and also the license piece as well. I didn't want to worry about limitations. And again, I just felt that feeling of empowerment that comes in. And I wanted to kind of remain humble. I didn't start going on 95 every day. So I went back to local roles and just get a good feel. And one of the good things, I worked at the public school as a job coach, is that you could just drive to your job sites and almost like a routine. And it wasn't 20, 30 minutes away. It was just a good amount of time and just, again, good exposure to just everyday traffic. And then I started small and then went into larger ones like highways. I eventually got more used to 84. And also Route 5 in Connecticut, the pretend highway, I like to call it. It's not supposed to be a highway, but the state forced it to a highway. And it's also the same one that goes into New York City. So it's a little, has its yikes periods. Also gets really narrow too, for those who are not familiar with it. All right, next step was just to get my story out there. Because of course, because I'm in a disability field, I was like, why afterwards? And I actually went to a Barnes and Nobles, grab a coffee and just worked on doing this like presentation. A lot older one was used a lot more like brighter colors when intended. That it's kind of funny to look back into. And I just kind of was working on it. I want to intentionally kind of share it with special education and also other disability places in the state. I mean, if no one else was advocating for this, it's like, I might as well. I might as well give it a try. It's better when having no voice. And I think it actually showed up on DSS in Connecticut's page. Really outdated and probably was back at one of my old employers. But anyway, then I got my chance back in 2019 with a Connecticut nonprofit that does a lot of like family work. I was able to present, and this was actually at one of my old jobs place before they moved recently. And I was super stoked about doing it because I was waiting to do this for a long time. And I was getting a lot more experience. I think 2019 was generally a fun year right before the pandemic happened. And God knows all the changes I came up with. So during this time, I was super stoked. I kind of felt that fire, similar to today, except of all the professional experience, and not to mention, I got more into non-sugar coffees for once. Really good for my teeth. And I was able to kind of first gauge people's reactions and the fact I had free providers. One was a driving school come in at the same time as 30 people. It may not look like it, but there was a huge crowd in that picture. Made it work, and yeah, just felt that fire, and it was a success. And then even like past people that I know, they were really impressed with it. And it opened the door to several things. I go really quick because this technically is boosting. And I think some of this is also on the website, which I'm going to share the link right near the end of this. So I did a partnership with a driving school right afterwards. I kind of want something where I kind of want to touch upon driver readiness in the state of Connecticut. And technically those are virtual classes too. So it was a good time. It kind of just taught me a lot of perspective on that. I also wrote some publications on autism spectrum news. And I kind of also did some online consultations because, you know, the virtual space during the pandemic, like Zoom was everywhere, and also provided some good opportunities to just be able to speak with families directly. I always like to talk to both the new driver and the parent, just so you get the full picture and be able to kind of help provide them, like get the exact information and be able to provide recommendations for going forward. And I also spoke in multiple conferences like the Autism Society of Greater Phoenix. I will go a bit quicker. And then I'm going to address the elephant in the room. I also, a year ago, actually almost a year and a half ago, I did Driving with Autism, which was appeared on theirs. And it was like about a year. It's like almost a year like online program. I did a lot of driver awareness ones. All the materials was done by me. It was kind of like a one-man show I did through Plan Cost Spectrum. And also a good time. And that's actually, I was a vendor here a year ago on the virtual space. And now also full circle, since I'm now kind of talking here, which hence the last part. I'm with all of you here doing keynote speaking. So here I am. So again, funny. And then currently program is on hold complications. I don't know, but if there's like an update, I would like to share it. But so for now, I'm just kind of doing my own thing nowadays. I also spoke in a few conferences. I got introduced to a couple places. And also I have some latest new updates, most recent. For my job I got my driver's endorsement where I can drive students to community settings. And it's something I did not think I would get into, but here I am. And I actually did my third drive yesterday, just taking my time, nothing too major. This words I'm very familiar with, and they've been very patient with me. And it felt natural. I thought it'd be really weird at first, but I got more used to it. So I'm gonna see how it goes, and hopefully nothing happens. And oh, that's actually, there was supposed to be another one. And I'm also doing like a project on my website. I'm going to be doing a blog series on driving resources, because you could find like maybe like providers, but not really like resources of like places. So I think for the teachers, I think there was the professional development people that have the folders, there should be like a handout. If not, you could go on the website. It's like, we're going after what kind of driving schools, what providers you could look for in your state. I think I have 5 up currently, so it's going to be an ongoing process, and that you could look it up right now. I'm gonna later on to be like a URL, so have fun with that. And someone else has to do it, and something for me to do while I figure out my next steps in my professional life. All right, now we're gonna get to the key bit, is what driving provided to me overall. And I also will have a lot of fun. I can actually talk about some of my driving habits here. Is confidence. Like I see it as a way of potential for me to seize and just be at my very best. again, I feel like by being able to do that and just kind of go out and do my thing, it just enhances my work. And the fact I have all these work opportunities is still crazy on its own. And I feel like the experiences that the themes that come up with it is something that a lot of people, may not everyone, but can relate to. And I've also get to use a lot of like special interest things I like into driving, like the picture here. This is back in my Matrix picture. I listen to a lot of video game soundtracks. Like I'm a huge like role playing like fan. I like the type of games like Final Fantasy, Nier. I greatly occasional some Pokemon, but not always. So I listen to that, and also listen to some old Hollywood movie recordings. I actually listened to a fantastic comedy. It happened one night with Clark Gable, the guy from Gone with the Wind. And if you want a really good romantic comedy from the early 30s, there you go. It happens one night. Search it up. I listened to it on the way here today. And I had a great time, and think it also solved the traffic issue in Hartford. All right, and then the travel experience, I'm gonna have even more fun. And I also drove around for work reasons for the last several years. Like last year, I went to the Nicholas Center in Newark. I went to there just to kind of get a feel for their program. So it was kind of good. I also was back during my driving with autism days last year. And I also went to a resource fair in Wickfield, Mass, which is like, I think that's north of Boston, if I know my Massachusetts side. So I went over there for a resource fair. That was like a good hour, no, actually 2.5 hours. But I'm not always going for work reasons. And also today, as example, I have fun. And oh yeah, I should probably, oh yeah, this is based on older ones, so bear with me. I attended a couple things in Mass. I think some of these you may be familiar with, or at least the Watertown one. But I actually drove to Worcester, which been a city I've actually surprisingly like. But I went to this cool little coffee shop that had this B-movie one. I actually met the actor that you could see the picture of. And here's a quick story, because I think I'm still okay with time. And the funniest thing is that the first time I walk in, the coffee place thought I was the actor. And I'm like, in this same setup, in the same exact setup, like I'm have right now, I'm like, excuse me. It was really funny. And even the actor got a good laugh, because I enjoy in the occasional movie. I also like this one's like really campy, like so bad it's good quality. The Room, for those, I don't know if anyone here is familiar with The Room, but I doubt it. But anyway, it was a good experience. I also was a good kind of foreshadowing of the trip I did on that same week, because last September, like near the end of the month, I went to Watertown, Massachusetts, a good 2 hours. I used no Route 90 because I'm not a tolls type of person. I pretty much played around with Route 20, which is a godsend for me. It gets you for all these different highways in the state. So I went for Worcester 290, 495, I think Route 2, and I went to Watertown, Mass, because I'm a Bar Rescue fan, and John Taffer opened up a place in Watertown called Taffer's Tavern. I was like, planning this out several months, and I actually went back there a couple weeks ago, like two Fridays ago. It was 50 minutes where I'm at, and I was like, I'll get sure not. I know I'm gonna get screwed by traffic, but might as well. And then a picture that should be here, I don't know why it's not, is on Good Friday, I drove to New Hampshire for an arcade machine. It's called Fun Spot. Amazing arcade. If you really love retro games, it's absolutely amazing. They have like a little video game museum there. Good 4 hours there. I took a break within the 2 hours because I need gas, and gas prices are still a little yikes. I think it's like $3.60 currently. In Worcester, for some reason, I saw gas at $3.99, which is ridiculous. Like absolutely ridiculous. So like I drive involved overtime, so I'm not just a workaholic driving for the next thing. Like I have fun trips, and now I don't know if I can beat New Hampshire now. I gotta like plan this out. I was thinking about it this morning while I was driving, is what can I do next to beat New Hampshire now? What could I possibly do? So I'll find it over time. And it also gives me just new perspectives to kind of look at for driving. And then one I see as just very enthusiastic, because you probably noticed that I enjoy video game music. I use that as a lot just for hyper focused reasons. It just works for me. Again, if music distraction, I encourage people to use something else, not that. So it's like everyone has like their different preferences, like different tools they could use. If I like a certain volume, or if you want windows down or want to keep windows up, you have a lot of choices inside your vehicles. Not so much outside, as much we'd love to just push every car aside on 91. We can't do that, can we? We're not Bruce Almighty, so can't really do that. And then like you can even pre-plan your trips, because New Hampshire and Watertown, Mass, I planned it out for several months, just like thinking, okay, how is this doable? Is it like, do I need to pay tolls? Do I need to take any breaks if I need to? how familiar I am. So it's like you have a lot of options. So it's not like you have to do it immediately. Like you have quite a bit to work with. And again, like I mentioned, I just get this rush, not like a bad rush. I do encourage everyone to drive safely, but I get a lot of joy from driving. We'll see what happens afterwards, but it's kind of expected since the urban setting. We'll see what happens there. And I also wanted to see this on landscapes, and next slide's a little unrealistic, but I always like to see sites, and New Hampshire was quite a surprise. Just seeing all the sites, and if only there was a lot more leaves on the trees. Like my mouth dropped during when I was driving into the video game museum. Like I couldn't believe how gorgeous New Hampshire was. It's like I actually want to see a lot more sites like that. Like I want to be surprised more. Maybe not so much. Like Massachusetts surprised me, and now it's like okay, like an occasional work trip every couple months. Like okay, this is what I expected. So I always like to see some new sites whenever I can. And as much as I like to have this sort of setting because it looks amazing, also for an amazing video game, but this is real life. So, and then finally, I think we're almost at the end. Oh yeah, is most recently, and something I've thought about since I've had a lot of like professional changes the last couple of months is driving just give me a voice. It give me a voice, and just like being able, again, like being able to kind of be able to listen to that inner voice and not let anyone stop you. Like, I guess even if my family were a type that'd be like, you can't do Massachusetts, New Hampshire trips, I'll be like, sure. And then just go do it anyway and just be responsible for myself. It's like knowing that, hey, it might be some anxiety and whatnot, but I'm not gonna let all that stop me. And I want to do these things. Again, I'd be driving to 2 different walks on the weekend. I'm not letting anything stop me. I think it's raining Sunday, but again, I'm not gonna let that stop me. And again, just like being able to just take charge of your life and just selecting, again, the option makes sense. Again, driving's not for everyone. And I like to keep reminding myself of that all the time when I do all my advocacy, because end of the day, you just got to do you and just, again, just constantly just can go on each day. And I think this is close to the end. Again, makes transportation, not just driving, transportation, like impactful in general. And now where you can find me, this is where my contact information. I think I'm still okay with time to go over Q&A. I don't see a sign up, so I think that's an awesome thing. And I think this should have my updated website. Oh, it doesn't. Well, I have an updated website on there. I should have a more updated website on the presentation. I think maybe Autism Connections could email that to everyone if that might be a possibility. Because I kind of shut down this. Oh my God, I have a new Webly one because this current one has no SEO factors. The stuff that lets Google find you. And I saw that as a no, so I wanted to fix that just before this. So, but yeah, so I on here, but this shows a different website. But basically, because I'm embracing my public speaking, also why I'm here too, and this goes over my professional history, speaking topics, actually timeline, which a lot of the driving timeline comes from, and sample videos of my work and publications. Where you can find me, and then next slide should be my information. You can know the phone number. It was just more of a draft type of thing, but my email's there. You could definitely email me, especially driving advice. And if you wanted to kind of gauge me in case any professionals here that may be looking for speakers in the near future, you could contact me that way. And I guess open up for Q&A now.
Thank you, Andrew. Does anybody have any questions?
Don't be shy. I see someone on the middle table at 18. I was kind of for my past work, it's kind of more towards like kind of like the before, but kind of before the driving. I guess I'm back in time that wasn't like not a lot of people know how it looked like. Yeah, you know, the anxiety piece, or it could be some other circumstance that might get in the way. Like people have like, you know, the external and the kind of like the inner kind of factors that may affect that sort of thing. I thought about it and I'm still thinking about it, but I'm also just kind of taking my time or channeling it through different needs, which were driving students to community settings every now and then, channeling that. It's still something I'm thinking about, but I'm also not rushing myself. Quite a bit of professional changes that occurred most, I wouldn't say recent, but a few months ago. So it's still something I think about, but knowing me, I'm pretty sure I might end up doing a collaboration with someone that might provide that directness. So, but I am fine with consultations, however. I see someone on the way back. I think it's 20, table 20.
we'll come back to
He's very nervous about it, and I don't want to like tip his hand. It's kind of what's going on. He didn't want to be automatically like, oh, we're going to do something different for this kid. And kind of put him out on a pedestal. So we first want to take it as an experience, but he's still nervous about how to go about if things start to go right with anxiety and some of his algorithms and get comfortable. How do you go about it? So I was just curious with your experience, how you did it.
Okay, so pretty much for those online, and almost forgot that during the first question, but this one's asking about disclosing on autism diagnosis to driving schools. Again, up to you. I guess I don't want to make my experience be a example for everyone because I want people to do different ones. And for some, that makes it more comfortable. Like it has to be them, or in cases where it's not. Again, it's really like a personal choice. I think just depends, and also just you have to probably take a look at the vibe of the driving school. All have like little different factors, and it might be easier that there. I think in Massachusetts, I think Central Mass, like around Worcester, I think there is a driving school like Central. There's like a safety one that does a lot of adaptive services.
Yeah.
And if you go on the website, that's not the URL from the last slide, and I can also come over and show you as well afterwards if that's okay with you.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Of the updated one, I also have all the links of just stuff that I find. I also encourage people to email me because I wanted to kind of grow over time. And same thing with Connecticut. I bash Connecticut. I do want Connecticut to get better at times. So I hope that provides insights because I don't want to kind of make it everything that I experience to be the form for everyone because everyone has different needs, and yeah, that should be embraced.
Andrew, I'm so sorry. We're just gonna have to use the microphone for the benefit of the
Oh, yeah,
folks
that's fine,
online.
yeah.
And I actually have a question over here that's been waiting.
That's fine.
Hi, so I'm a parent of a young adult on the spectrum, and we've kind of broached the subject of him looking into driving classes. He has a lot of anxiety. What would I, as a parent, look for in a driving class if we were looking for an adaptive driving program for someone who may have some central processing disorders?
Very good question on like driving resources. I can also after this ends, I can also come over to you as well to kind of go over that. For what to look into for adaptive programs and what I've seen, I'm still finding out new programs while I'm kind of doing my blog project. And knowing me, I either might be working on it during the weekend or whenever I just have free time from college classes. I kind of look into is see if they have a routine established, and they also do a lot of critical assessments, and those kind of tackle just, they do a lot of assessing on not just the kind of like those important skills like executive functioning, but they also do behind the wheel like assessments. So since it sounds like there's a lot of fear in your son's case, sounds like that might be something to look into. And again, I think there's also a couple hospital rehab programs that also does a lot of assessments, and they provide you with recommendations. That usually if there's like, or at least kind of how I present in consultation, that there's like a lot more fear than usual. Like usually like fear is understandable for, like specific driving ones, but if there's like a lot more extended one, like that might be necessary to look into like getting a clinical assessment.
Hi there, Andrew. I have a question for you. Do you do any work or do you utilize the blue envelope legislation that Connecticut passed? Because I know currently sitting in this session for legislation for Massachusetts, they're looking at bringing the blue envelope project to Mass. And I was curious to see if that was something you utilized in your experience with that.
I think it's still in my car, but I barely use it. And my only purpose with it was I did a video for Southern Connecticut State University. It actually showed up in the video. I got probably the first time I ever got pulled over, but not for a real reason. It was more filming reasons. And also really cool opportunity because that's like another territory that's still being worked on. And I think it could go a lot more. I feel like the issue itself could go a lot more better. So I was very ecstatic being able to do that. It was like back in 2021, I did the video. They found me and it was really just a good visual because there was some things I didn't know because I didn't know how police kind of get their sirens up, like the lights. So having done filming that, and while it wasn't like the most real example, it provided me enough visuals, or in case if it ever happens to me, God forbid, I know exactly what to do with that one.
Hi, I just wanted to mention that you mentioned a slide about like for Connecticut road laws with getting a permit, it lasts for 2 years. That is the same thing in Massachusetts. I recently went through that
Oh,
and I
yikes.
got my license within 41 days of my learner's permit expiring, which would have expired tomorrow if I didn't push myself to get my license. I just wanted to make that comment.
Okay, good to know. Still learning a bit more about Massachusetts, but congratulations. Like, yeah, I still don't like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, if you go a lot longer, it's like, if you like someone that needs more time, how in the world are you supposed to? Like pressure, like some pressure isn't too bad. It could be like a decent motivator, but if you need a lot more time, it's like, how in the world are you supposed to get it done? Like, it's kind of a little bit in flexibility in that sort of system. So, but still, congratulations. Do take your time. Anyone else want to make sure? And is there any online questions? Oh, table 23, I think.
I'll try to keep this short. So I'm a parent of a 17-year-old son who we're just now going through the process of studying for the test, and down in Tennessee. What strategy, since for everyone driving can be very sensory heavy, have you had to develop any strategies for not getting what's the word? Overstimulated. Thank you. When you're behind the wheel, and how do you limit your emotions during that?
Good question. Like a lot, I feel like I also use video games for that reason. There's music just motivating, and even if I have like the worst possible day, let's say I was just super tired, and I actually had this. I presented in Equal Autism, more virtual space, but I was like dead tired. I only got like 3 hours of sleep last Thursday, and I had to kind of drive over. I do a couple drives after that to think it was a place I went to. I forgot where, but after that, I just also use video game music. And if I recognize that I need to stop somewhere, like I just have to, yeah, for me, I just have to be self-aware. And of course, with some things you probably have to be direct with, or may just add that as like a driver's routine. And also make it kind of like normalize it, because most people, I would imagine most drivers, maybe not everyone, but it's like being able to take advantage of, say on the highway, you get really tired, is ideal that each day has its own rest areas, Connecticut, and I know Mass is definitely a couple, at least on the route, on the 84 side of Mass, right before it goes into 90 and 1220. I just kind of recognize and just kind of take advantage of those sites in case you get like overly tired. And if you need to like stop somewhere or stop at a gas station, somewhere where it's safe parking wise, to just cool off and kind of get back to like a neutral state, that's something I encourage too. And I guess also be like me, and I get off by coffee. So anything kind of like big and major comes up, have like a cold coffee and thousand. But it's just my example. But he's not a coffee person. Don't stress about that.
Thank you very much. And I agree with driver's ed. I had 3 grandchildren go through driver's ed, and they also drove with family. But I also feel that it's up to the adult, but that there's nothing wrong with the registry knowing that my child is autistic. And not that they're going to do anything different or anything special, but just so that they will know. And you know, they have exceptions for language and for everything else. So why not for autism? I don't feel there's anything wrong with that. You're not putting your child in the spotlight, but it's up to the parent and it's up to the child.
Okay, table 8.
Andrew, I really appreciated the slide where you talked about your approach to the road test. And I just wanted to know if you have any advice, because I don't think this was your experience, but any advice for someone who may have failed the test once, twice, maybe more?
I think I was actually talking about that with a random family, funny enough, earlier. And there's something to do is kind of look into if you're able to get information on what parts do you have the most trouble with. I feel like that would be like at least like a good indicator of what you might want to work on. And that's also another reason I encourage people to take full advantage of the mock-up test, because they kind of grade you exactly like a regular will test. So that'd be something we'll get into. Just kind of look into those like problem areas and see if you're able to kind of come up with something. And if you need to go back to it, sometimes that happens. And just keep in mind the whole pyramid thing. I still hate those walls to this day. All right, and then table 18. Oh, you also get a mic.
Do they offer the mock-up tests at like DMV or RMV?
Like select
places?
driving schools, like usually it's a driving school thing, or maybe providers too. So if you're like nearby driving schools, even if they don't have like adaptive one, it's kind of like a more general driving school service. Hopefully not too expensive, but it's like a service that you could do. I think it's like in Connecticut, I used a different driving school for mine. And I think it wasn't too bad, but you could just request it, like work around. Like Mass is still a pretty decent sized state. There has to be at least a driving school out there that does like mock-up test. All right, table 23.
I'm just curious, since you like driving so much, if you'd consider ever being like an Uber driver or like a Lyft driver to kind of make some money from driving?
You don't mind repeating the question?
Just since you like driving so much, I was just wondering if you'd ever consider driving for like Uber or Lyft to make some money from your passion of
I kind
driving?
of have some slight thoughts while I'm kind of figuring out more things this year. I've thought about it. I'm also just pacing myself because I tend to be a type where I get more busy. I'm kind of also want to devote time to public speaking. Especially, I've been doing a lot more drives in Massachusetts and hopefully Rhode Island in the near future. That state's even smaller and not too much happens. So I can take those opportunities. But I have thought about it over time, but I'm also not really rushing myself. I think I probably have to be desperate to do Uber, at least in my case. But you never know. Things could come up, or there might be some taxi service for this population. I don't know. I'm just going to leave it up to how things go and knowing and see whatever comes up. I'm kind of like a magnet for these things. All right, anyone else? Oh, table 20, 30, I mean.
Hi. So I'm also autistic, and when I was learning how to drive, one of the main things that I struggled with was the amount of trust that you have to put into other people on the road, because a large part of driving is not having any control, and you just have to kind of get in your car and be like, okay, people are going to do what they need to do, and I'm going to do what I need to do. And that's an agreement that we all have getting into our cars and onto the road, which is something that like, sorry,
Oh.
I'm talking really fast.
You're fine.
But that's something that I really struggled with. And is that something like that you struggled with, or is that something that you have like a way to approach, or is that something that you talk to people about? I was wondering about that.
I talked about it quite a bit in the driving series I used to do. Like it became so common. I get that a lot in past consultations. I actually had to apply it to a presentation. And one of the best ways is knowing that you can't do anything. Like if say something happens, I hope nothing happens. It just, you can't do anything. And the best way for me, and because I watch too many reality shows, I had to remind myself that they're like bad chefs in Hell's Kitchen. Like you watch them and you see them mess up on this risotto, this beef Wellington. They keep messing up again and again, and they get the black jackets, or it's like the next level right before the final prize, and they still can't get this one dish right. Like while completely different settings, I'm quite aware, but you can kind of apply that and you watch them mess up all these dishes and it'd be like, I just don't want it. I'm not going to end up like these chefs in the show. So I kind of apply that and I actually use the same comparison. Like after I realized that you're just not going to do these things, and you see a lot of things. And I think recently I actually saw in my town, like there was this, there's two lanes, one lane goes into a hospital setting. And on the street, in this lane to go on the highway, you're not supposed to go left. And one day I saw two drivers keep going left. I don't know why, but I guess people are really desperate to go over there. Hopefully not for bad reason, or just more impatient, but it's like, yikes. It's like, again, they're lanes for a reason. So again, just kind of like, again, it's kind of like more like you can't do a lot, but you can at least try to keep yourself safe and others. And also it might be funny, at least kind of think of it as like a bad chefs, because come on, it is, like might be the best way to apply it. Again, scripted, most likely, probably probably, but again, kind of a good lesson to take in.
Does anybody else have any questions?
And I could be after this and I also stay here because there was a couple of people that are interested in the website. And I wish I can get up here. I don't know what happened, but I also have a digital app that has like a digital card that I've shown up to a few providers. So I'm more happy to send that over to all of you. Let me get.
All right, thank you so much, Andrew Arboe.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.